On August 23rd, 2025, Coventry City announced that they own the Coventry Building Society Arena in full. But the story of the stadium goes all the way back to 1997, when Coventry City at the time were an established Premier League side. They first announced plans that they'd be moving to a new stadium on the Fosal Gasworks. A year later, planning permission was approved, and in 1999 fans were sold the dream of a 40,000 seater stadium that would be used for the 2006 World Cup bid. However, of course, Germany would go on to host the 2006 World Cup, and because of this, alongside Coventry City's relegation from the Premier League in 2001, the 40,000 seater stadium would be cut down to a 32,000 seater stadium, and Coventry City would sell their shares to the stadium, yes, 4 years before the stadium was even completed, to the Alan Higgs charity, which means, yes, 4 years before the stadium was even completed, Coventry City knew that they would not own a thing. By the way, I'm not standing here for no reason. It started to rain on my stroll to the ground. And so by April 2005, after 106 years at Highfield Road, Coventry City inevitably would leave to go to the Ricoh Arena. Well, although I never got to visit Highfield Road, from August 2006, I'd walk over this bridge every other Saturday off to the Ricoh. And as a young fan myself, the biggest issue for me was just the fact that we weren't very good at football. But behind the scenes, things were getting worse and worse and worse. The club were just minutes away from extinction before Sisu came in and saved the club. I'd put saved in quotation marks there. And don't get me wrong, I've got some fantastic memories coming here as a kid with my dad, just enjoying football as a child, and that is exactly how it should be. From then on though, on the pitch, things got worse and worse, and in 2011, the Sky Blues were relegated to League One. Two things, firstly, and secondly, I have picked the very worst day to film this video. Now, fans knew things were bad when the last 3 home games in League One were in jeopardy. Where would they be played? An agreement was signed that we'd play them at the Ricoh Arena. However, the next season we moved to Northampton Town's Sixfields. Now, as a kid, this made absolutely no sense to me. Why could we not just play behind me at the Ricoh? And Northampton's not Coventry. So when Coventry moved out of the Ricoh for the first time and I stopped going to the games, as a kid, I lost that enjoyment of watching my local team. Alongside this, Coventry were given a -10 points deduction. In the words of Coventry City legend Bobby Gould, it is as if pantomime season had come 5 months early. However, in September of 2014, that nightmare seemed to be over. Coventry City came back to the Ricoh Arena for the first time anyway. A 1-0 win over Gillingham, Frank Nouble scoring a goal, a fantastic crowd at the Ricoh. That was the end of it, right? Wrong. Now that season finished in an end of season relegation battle that saw a James Maddison goal away at Crawley keep us in League One. The year after, things looked even better. We signed Joe Cole, like literally signed Joe Cole. I still can't believe we signed Joe Cole. However, we still finished 8th, and a year later were relegated to League Two. And let me just put it into perspective. This story started in 1999 when Coventry City were an established Premier League side playing at Highfield Road. We're now in 2018 playing home games here behind me in League Two in front of crowds of 5,000 to 6,000. But I haven't even mentioned that in this period of time, Coventry City were looking to agree a rent agreement with the owners of the stadium. However, this all fell through when London Wasps Rugby Club snuck out of nowhere, found an agreement themselves, and what was once built a football stadium quickly became a rugby stadium with a horrible pitch. This once again led to more disagreements, because that's what we're good at, disagreeing with everyone. In April 2019, after our first season back in League One, our agreement here ended and Coventry City would once again move away from Coventry, this time to Birmingham City's ground, St Andrews. Now, a football club being kicked out of his city sounds bad, but it's not too unusual. It's happened plenty of times. Bristol Rovers had to play at Bath City's ground for a few years. Gloucester City and Worcester City spent years hopping around local grounds. And Newport County even had to play home games in England at one point. Yeah, that's a crazy story. Now, Northampton was one thing, but moving away from this stadium where Coventry fans' ashes had been scattered, stadium built for football, with fans' names all over the walls, and this guy here, there used to be some sort of shelter here, and I'll never forget at least 10, 20 times coming to the statue to protest against the ownership, to keep the club at the stadium. Now, the move to Birmingham was interesting to say the least. As much as there was a worry there that a whole generation of fans would miss out on supporting the Sky Blues, a pretty mediocre Sky Blues who had not really had much to cheer about in recent years. The one small difference from the Birmingham season was simply the fact that Mark Robins had the players playing some really good football. And I was old enough to make my own decisions, and I went to every single game that season. Looking back, I look at it with a little bit of novelty that yes, I went to Birmingham to watch my team, Coventry City, play home games. Did I enjoy it? Yeah, when we won, sometimes. It wasn't home. It wasn't Coventry. It was different from what I'd grown up with my dad, to becoming a teenager and going to games with my mates. Suddenly, I was going to Birmingham, spending time in Birmingham City pubs, going to Birmingham City's ground to support Coventry City. We still actually went on to win League One. After going through the playoffs in League Two, we won the league in League One, due to a technicality, but we were back in the Championship and something came about that caused the whole global pandemic. We all had to stay in the house for a year. We won't speak about that. However, once again, Coventry City would come into another agreement for this place, and in August 2022, we returned again. Because although the arena had been renamed from the Rico to the CBS, the Wasps were quickly running out of money, and they needed us like we needed them at one point. See, we were kicked out of that ground because of the council, because of the Wasps, because of everyone around it. The arena simply did not need the city's football team anymore. Flash forward 3 years, 2 playoff finals, record crowds, some of the best days in Coventry City's recent history. The arena's now ours, and it's crazy to even think. And the best thing about it is, it doesn't feel that long ago when we had a small club shop in Tesco's, which is actually now a vape shop, which shows how small the shop is. We were renting the ground off the Wasps and the council. Pitch was terrible, the crowds were poor. That doesn't feel that long ago. Owning a football ground seems a pretty basic thing when you actually think about it, but plenty of the big boys don't even own their grounds. Manchester City, Newcastle United, even Chelsea don't own their ground. Now, of course, these clubs are larger than life, and to be honest, owning their ground's the least of their priorities. But for a championship club, and revenue-wise, this is the best thing we could have wanted. These things here, behind me, are making the club more revenue. The Hilton Hotel, the Anecdote Bar, the casino, as long as no millionaires are coming in and winning loads of money. The massive exhibition hall behind me, which is attached to the stadium, that's hosting Ed Sheeran in December and hundreds of exhibitions across the year. But we're not having to pay rent anymore. The rent for the club shop, for the ticket office, club's offices. And while under Doug's ownership, I'm sure we'll see a lot of improvements to a stadium that has already seen so many improvements in recent years. The George Curtis and John Sillett statue that was unveiled in April 2025. I'd call the train station an improvement, but that's when it wants to work. He's not here, by the way. The pitch has improved more than anything. I want to shake this man's hand, but he's driving a tractor. Clearly, for the first time in a long time, Coventry City have an owner who is invested in the community, in the club, of course, the stadium. And as we know, he's a businessman. He's going to want to make money. And ethically, yes, he's charging £45 an adult ticket for a football match. Good, especially in the Championship. Absolutely not. But he wants to make money, and he has ambition for this club to finally be back in the Premier League. So on the pitch, we might not have had the best transfer window. There might be 1 or 2 players you feel like we missed out on and maybe we shouldn't have sold. But this behind me is the best signing Coventry City have made in 25 years. Because for the first time in my lifetime, Coventry City have a home, a future, somewhere not just the next generation, but the next generation's generation can support their local football club. Sometimes the importance of football can be overlooked for how much it helps people with their mental health, to the community and belonging that it brings, to simply that routine, because there's some people, I guarantee, the only thing they look forward to is 3 o'clock on a Saturday. And after years of uncertainty, Coventry City finally have a home. We have a home. And hopefully one day it can host Premier League football. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Speaking about improvements, actually, I don't know who owns this bit of land. I don't know if you own this, Doug, but if you see this, can you fix this machine? It's been beeping like that since I was about 12.